So 2024 was a huge year for Salesforce, but what does it actually mean for the recruiting industry and what you can look forward to in 2025? Let's talk about that. Hey everyone, and welcome to Salesforce for Recruiters. I'm your host, Brad Owens, and I was just like you. I spent well over a decade in the recruiting industry using various pieces of technology that never really fit what I wish they could do for me. And then I saw Salesforce, and I went, oh my gosh, where has this been all my life? And since then, I've been dedicating my career to helping both Salesforce and the recruiting world understand how this platform can actually be used for recruiting. So I want to dig in today into what 2025 could actually mean for the recruiting world and Salesforce. So there were tons of announcements that Salesforce came out with in 2024, and the biggest of which was Agentforce. And that is Salesforce's great big entry into this digital labor space. Now, what truly is Agentforce and what's it going to do for you in 2025? Well, Agentforce is really this digital labor, we'll call it a platform because it's a great big ecosystem that you can access by being a part of the Salesforce world. And Agentforce is really going to be this digital labor platform for you to create different types of individuals almost that are going to be agents that will handle various things for you. So you can have an agent that's dedicated to being just a sourcer. It will look for the right kind of resumes that are coming in and immediately reach out to them and try and set up different appointments for you or different interviews or whatever you want it to be. You could have a recruiter that is able to look through all of those source candidates and understand who might be a good fit for what, and then automatically fill your pipeline with those candidates. You could have a scheduler. That a scheduler could be the individual that looks for those matched candidates and then immediately starts to schedule times for you. So you can imagine how all of these different administrative tasks that you have to do will immediately be taken off your plate. Like all of these things are possible, and that's because of agents. And Agentforce is really just going to grow throughout all of 2025. And for those of you that are thinking about how could I apply AI, I think you need to expand that into how could I apply agents, because the intelligence is going to be there. How you make use of it is what Agentforce is going to do for you. And I think that's going to be huge in all of 2025. To power all these different interactions and things that Salesforce makes possible through things like their AI Agentforce and through different types of integrations that they can set up for you, all of that is not possible without data. And the problem that we have as recruiters is our data exists in a bunch of different locations. We might have resumes over here, and we might have our interactions flowing through LinkedIn over here, and through text messages over here, and through phone calls on this platform. It's all over the place. And the way that Salesforce helps you bring that together is through Data Cloud. And Data Cloud has pre-built connectors that take your data from one location and brings it into the Salesforce ecosystem. I have to say Salesforce ecosystem because of where we're going later on in this episode. So we'll just say Salesforce ecosystem for now. So you can imagine Data Cloud as that connector between your data sources. So Data Cloud is going to be that. And I think in 2025, what we're going to see is more and more of these pre-built connectors coming out inside of Data Cloud. So that's going to allow you to take data from all these different sources that you may not even think could be connected into Salesforce and acted upon or used to inform some of your AI agents. A lot of that is going to start becoming a lot easier throughout 2025 because Data Cloud is going to have a lot more sources. So if you haven't already started considering Data Cloud, you should really look into it. And I think 2025 is going to be the year that that comes into its own. Now, one of the pieces that I think the recruiting industry is really yet to tap into that I think is going to explode in 2025 is Slack. If you didn't already know, Salesforce has acquired a company called Slack that they're touting as their work ecosystem, right? It's their work OS. It's the work operating system. So what Slack is let's go ahead and date everyone that's listening to this. It could be your AOL Instant Messenger for work. It could be your Google Chat for work. It could be your Microsoft Teams, but on the Salesforce platform. So Slack is truly going to be the interaction platform for your Salesforce data. Now, I truly feel like Salesforce as a platform, as the ability to log into and manipulate records, is something that is going to become a dinosaur here relatively quickly. And Slack is going to be that interaction medium where you can interact with that data that exists inside Salesforce. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to set up a Slack account. They have free tiers. You can get in there and mess around with it and interact with your team. I truly would set up a Slack account for this year because I want you to start experiencing what Slack would actually look like and how you could integrate it into your workflow. And then start understanding that once we have agents and digital labor that we can interact with just like our teammates, but inside of Slack, that's how you're going to start powering what that future is. So I really encourage you to start looking at Slack because I think if I were to predict into the future, I think that's going to be how we're going to interact with Salesforce data into the future. One of the big things in 2025 that started changing in 2024 is the access you get to the Salesforce platform. Now, Salesforce has a bunch of different products. It's got Sales Cloud, it's got Service Cloud, it's got MuleSoft, it's got the ability to do marketing, it's got all sorts of different versions of Salesforce that it has had as what they called clouds for so long. But that's starting to change. They're allowing you to get bits and pieces of everything rather than having to pay for each individual cloud and access to those features. So I don't think clouds will be the future. What the future is what Salesforce is referring to as foundations. And now foundations is going to give you the ability to have access to a bunch of different parts, kind of the best features of all these different clouds that are not going to be called clouds for much longer. It's going to give you access to a bunch of those different features that you can use as a foundation for what you're doing inside Salesforce. So if you can imagine that as a brand new user of Salesforce, you now have access to not just the standard CRM, which they call Salesforce, but you also have access to things like cases and different types of workflows around servicing your on assignment talent. And you have different marketing features that allows you to market out to brand new talent or to tap into your database you already have. That's what Foundations is going to do. It's going to give you access to different pieces that in the past have been segmented, but Foundations is going to start giving you more and more access to these different pieces of Salesforce without having to pay for individual pieces of it. Now, my big reach, the big thing that I predict is going to happen at some point, but could actually happen in 2025, is going to be this change in Salesforce's pricing model. You can already start to see some of the pieces coming together for this, and I'm going to kind of build that up and then tell you what I think is going to change. So Salesforce has changed from the model of you have to buy each individual pieces of these clouds and these features to Foundations. And what Foundations is doing is giving you these ability to have individual features from all these different clouds, and it's giving you the ability to have a little bit of everything. That's the first clue. The second clue is how they're pricing out Agentforce. They're pricing it per interaction. So the amount of times that this agent is used is going to affect how much you're paying for that month. So I think, and it could happen in 2025, we all know it's going to change to this, but I think it could happen in 2025, is Salesforce is going to be priced based on more of consumption, how much you're actually using of the software versus how many seats you have to pay for. So if you have, let's say, 100 recruiters, you don't have to pay for 100 licenses. If you have some of those recruiters that fluctuate based on your needs in the market, so let's say you're sourcing for something that is really highly used around the holidays, you won't have to pay for those recruiters to be active all the time. You just are paid on your consumption of Salesforce models and Salesforce data rather than the amount of seats that you have. So I think that could happen in 2025. We all know it's going to change to that eventually, but I think it could actually happen in 2025 because they're setting the pieces in place to make that possible. So those are my predictions for what 2025 is going to bring. We're going to have a lot more Agentforce, but we're going to start seeing this digital labor be a big key part of what they're pushing going forward. We're going to see a lot more data cloud. Yes, we've had some connectors to bring your data inside Salesforce, but the amount of those connectors is going to grow exponentially here in 2025 because that is the future of how we're going to use the Salesforce platform. And then I'm going to see more and more recruiting firms using Slack. So if you haven't already, that's going to be the interface of the future for Salesforce. So start moving your company onto Slack for their internal communications. Start doing some of your work in there to see what's possible. And then I think this foundations model of what you have access to across all of the Salesforce ecosystem is going to grow even more. And I think foundations is how they're going to really start testing out this model of what the biggest piece of change could possibly be of how they're pricing Salesforce. It's going to be more consumption based rather than seat based pricing going forward. I'd be really interested to revisit this video in 2026 to see how many of my predictions actually came true. So what part of this is most exciting for you? Based on what we've been talking about for the years that we've been doing this, what are you looking forward to using inside your recruiting? What has Salesforce brought out that you're actually excited about? Well, let's hear about it in the comments. So I want to hear more about that. If you've got any questions, send them directly to me if you'd like. The best email for me is hello@bradowens.com. If you want to find more videos like this where we talk all about how you can use Salesforce for your recruiting, it's at salesforceforrecruiters.com. Until next time, this is Brad Owens. See ya.